I don't have to say the words, I'm sorry I was mad. I love that I don't have to say that because I don't have to apologize for the emotion. Maybe I have to apologize for the behavior.
Welcome to the Connect Method Parenting Podcast, where correction is out, connection is in, and your kids want to listen to you. I'm Andy Martineau, creator of Connect Method Parenting, here to help you stay calm, confident, and connected no matter what. Yo, everybody, welcome back. It's Monday. Thank you for starting your week off with me. And, if you haven't left a review and you are enjoying the podcast, I would love it if you just take a minute, leave a review on whatever platform you're listening to. That would mean the world to me. And today I have something really special. I'm bringing in one of my amazing clients, Amelia. She went through the February parenting pivot and participated in the CMP study at the same time. And I am so honored and thrilled that she's here today. The conversation that you're about to listen to is inspiring. It gives you a peek into what it looks like to have CMP working out there in the wild, in the craziness and messiness of real life with multiple kids. So lean in, you all. You're going to want to hear her wins and her wisdom and gems that she drops that are so fantastic. In fact, I love having people come share their point of view because you hear it in their words with their struggles and how they overcame it. And it's going to inspire you. It's going to inspire you. So get ready. And remember this too. There is nothing that we're going to talk about today that isn't available for you. As much as we all want to be a special unicorn, special snowflake, it's not the case. CMP, it works for people because they follow simple science-backed steps and they implement and they iterate and they just keep working towards what they want to create for themselves. And that is available for all of us. So let's dive in. I'm so excited to have with me today, Amelia. She has been working with me. How long has it been?
It's been since February, so it hasn't been super long, but yeah, it's been great.
February, March, April, May, June, 4 months. I can do math. So for 4 months. And yeah, it's been a total privilege to be able to have you come in and to be able to work with you. And you just have done a beautiful job taking the principles of Connect Method Parenting and implementing them into your life. So I can't wait for you to share your story and your journey with everybody. But let's start with who you are. I thought I'd just give you maybe like 30-second snapshot of your family, kind of a deal, so people can understand the dynamics of what it's like for you in your parenting world.
Yes. Thank you so much for that, Andy. I've enjoyed every moment so far. It's been so great. And a little bit about me. I have 3 children. My oldest is 6, and I have a 3-year-old, and then I have a little boy who's about to be 1. So I have 2 girls and my little guy. And I have a dog. He is surprisingly kind of like one of my children sometimes, if for those of you that have pets.
I love it. Yes.
So
yes.
He's right in the mix. And I'm from the Midwest. I've lived in the Midwest for my whole life, pretty much. I've had pieces of time where I've been outside and I've lived outside of this area for short periods of time, but I really love it. And we want to raise our family here. And so that's what we're doing. And it's been really great.
I love it. And 3 kids, 5 and under, and a dog.
Yeah.
It's a lot. It's a lot. I know so many people can relate to just the dynamics of multiple kids and
Yep.
what that's like. It's busy.
It is
so
very busy.
What was the journey that led you to finding me and Connect Method Parenting?
Yeah.
I'm so excited to hear.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. I don't think we've talked about this. So I didn't mention this earlier, but I homeschool my oldest daughter. So she just turned 6, and we've been working on kindergarten this last year together. But in regards to your question, Andy, so that's how I found you. So as a homeschooling mom, I was trying to find some tips on how can I figure this out because I've never done this before. Obviously, this is, with my oldest child, it's a first-time experience for both of us. So yeah. I felt very intimidated by it, and I was nervous, and I didn't really feel like I knew what I was doing. And so I found a great podcast by Meg Thomas.
Yeah, she's a good friend of mine.
Mm-hmm. Called to Homeschool. And the podcast that I happened to be listening to, that episode anyway, you were a guest on her show.
Yes.
And I was listening, and I was just so fascinated by everything you were saying. And I just remember thinking to myself, I want that. I want that. I want to learn how to do that. I need to figure this out. And I searched for you right away. In fact, I don't even think I finished the podcast episode. I stopped it. And I was researching the book and researching you, and I ordered it the same day. I ordered the book the same day. And I was just so excited to dive in and figure it out, because everything that you were saying just spoke to me so much. And I said, I need that. I need that in my life. I need to figure that out. So, yeah.
Oh, that's so fun. I didn't realize you found me through her podcast.
Yes.
Big shout out to Meg Thomas. She's awesome.
She is.
We've homeschooled together, and yeah, both of us just do a lot of the same work as far as helping moms get out there, and her focus is more on homeschooling. So yes, so good. Okay. When you found out I was doing the parenting pivot in January, or February, rather, it was February was when you joined. Tell me what you were hoping to accomplish. Like, what was the big, at this point, you know a little bit about me. You've maybe read some of my book. You like what I'm talking about. And you're like, okay, I would like to get help implementing Connect Method Parenting. What were you hoping to solve?
First of all, I just want to say about the pivot to begin with, I signed up for it, I think, last minute.
I think you're right. You're one of the last people to sneak in. Yeah.
I was. I check my emails often, but I don't always, I can be a skimmer. And so I see it, and I don't even honestly remember seeing it. I think it was right around the time of the Super Bowl, and it was the evening or something. Right. And I remember seeing that, and it said something in the email like last chance. And I said, oh my goodness, this is so exciting. I need to get in on this, because I had been reading your book a little bit. I'm not going to lie, there were a few things that I was reading that I didn't really understand, because it was a totally new concept for me. And I'm sure there's a lot of people out there that if they are listening to this, or they're starting to read your book, or what have you, starting to kind of dip their toes into Connect Method Parenting, they maybe are feeling the same way and thinking that there's things that seem really odd or seem really uncomfortable, or things that they're like, well, that sounds great, but I don't know how. I don't know what that is or how to do that. And that's kind of where I was. I was really excited, and I was really interested, and I just thought, I don't know how to do this, though. I really want to know how to do this. And so signing up for the pivot was the best thing I ever did. Absolutely.
It was, love it.
It was great. It was so great. And honestly, all I wanted was, in the beginning, all I really wanted was a better relationship with my oldest. Ever since she was about 3, we started kind of getting, I don't know what changed. Maybe she started to realize, hey, I have a say. I can maybe push the limits a little bit. I can push the boundaries. And I think I've mentioned this before, but she is a lot like me. And it's not very easy to parent someone so much like yourself. It feels like you're parenting yourself. Yeah. And in some ways, you'd expect that to be easy, but it's almost so much harder that way. It's much more of a challenge. And so I just noticed this change in her as she started to get a little bit older, and a 3 is very little, but I just noticed that things were getting harder and they were getting more challenging. And every time she would get a year older and we'd be at her birthday and we'd be singing to her and she'd be blowing out her candles, I would think, this is the year. This is the year I'm going to figure it out. This is the year that we're going to have a good relationship. This is the year that I'm going to feel like I got it all together, and we're going to be close, and it's going to be great, and I'm not going to be feeling these things anymore that I'm feeling. And that's what I told myself every year. And every year that her birthday would come, I'd be kind of sad, because I'd think I didn't do it. I failed. I didn't do what I wanted to do. And here we are still. And I joined the pivot in February. My daughter's birthday is in May. And when she had her birthday this year, I was feeling so happy and so much joy, because I said, it's different now. And I mean, it doesn't mean it's perfect, but it's different now. And I got somewhere, and it was only a little bit amount of time. And I spent the last 3 years hoping and wishing and thinking, but we didn't really get anywhere. I thought just by wishing and by hoping and by thinking I could somehow make something happen, but it just never came to fruition. So I was so excited this year, because I really felt like we were going in a really good direction. I could sense it. I could feel it.
Good.
Yeah.
Yes. I love the tangible moment. You're like, it's the birthday. We're blowing out the candles. And this year it feels like something's different.
Yes.
Oh my goodness. That's what all of us want. That's what I remember laying in bed when my kids were little, having that same ache and desire of wanting things to be different. And then Groundhog's Day every day, it's just what's happening. It's not happening. So I love that the parenting pivot, which is the first, for those who are listening, it's the first 8 weeks of what can transition into the bigger picture, which is the League of Extraordinarily Connected Parents, which is a program that can go longer. And now Amelia's in that, and we're we're doing what we call CMP mastery. She's transitioned to that. But that first 8 weeks, it's this fast-paced, almost parenting boot camp where you do this really deep dive into CMP, which is my shortcut way of saying connect method parenting, because that foundational framework to get it installed as quickly as possible so that you can at least have a conceptual idea of this is how it works, and you'll see things change even in those 8 weeks is really powerful. So I just wanted to explain what we were talking about in case you're confused. I want to ask though too, Amelia, as you dove in to the parenting pivot, did you have any hesitation or any roadblocks or any questions of, I wonder if this could really work? I don't know if this, I'm curious if any of that came up. Maybe none of it did, but I would love to know if it did and how you navigated it.
I did. I had a lot of things, especially in the beginning, that just, I was fully embracing everything that was coming and happening. And in a way, it felt so freeing because there were things that I didn't give myself permission to do or feel for so long. I thought being angry was almost like saying that word it was like a dirty word. You don't talk about it. You don't say it. If I was anything other than happy, something was wrong with me. Happy, positive, patient, basically anything positive, anything good, that was good. And that was what I was supposed to be. And anything outside of that was bad. And it just meant something was wrong with me. And I remember things actually were really good for the first little bit. Things felt like I was really getting into it. I was really exploring it. I could see the things happening. I could see the sparks. I could see the roads that were being paved, and it was really exciting. And then a couple weeks in, I started to kind of have a day where I would think to myself, do you even know what connect method parenting is? Has this ever been a concept to you? Has anyone ever talked to you about it? Have you ever heard of it in your life? There would be a day where it just didn't seem like any of the things that I had been learning about were being a part of my day. I was getting really frustrated and I was yelling and I was kind of going back to some of the things, a lot of us do, of course. And that was hard to give myself grace in those moments, because in those moments it was really easy for me to want to say, this isn't working, or you failed, or, well, here you are again. You can't keep going and sticking with a good thing. You're sliding backwards. That's not okay. That's not good. And so it was a lot of challenge in the sense of trying to remind myself, I need to give myself grace. I need to give myself patience. I need to be positive, but I also need to acknowledge what I'm feeling with all of this too, which is a big part of what I've learned. And I had a lot of big questions confront me. Things like, I know we've talked about one of these things on office call hours, where I would ask myself things like, if I knew what to do and I didn't do it, I couldn't have been doing my best. And I really believed that. And I really couldn't see any other answer other than I couldn't have been doing my best. I just couldn't have. I couldn't have. So that was something that was really something that was hard for me. And just those kind of questions would come up because this change was starting to happen, and I would start to be thinking things, and I would start to be realizing, oh, I can do this, or I need to do this. And it was just like something was triggering me or holding me back, and I couldn't do it. And that was really hard for me. So those kind of things were super challenging. Even something as simple as offering comfort to myself, comfort to my kids, that was really hard. And I didn't know why. And it was just little things that would come up that I thought would be easy, and they weren't. So that was hard.
Yes. Oh my gosh. I'm so glad you brought this up. I wasn't going to jump here now, but we are, because you brought it up. I'm like, yes, we have to go here because this is so important. And I love how you described this conflict of, I don't realize why this is so hard. Like, why is this so hard? And how could I ever believe and let myself off the hook, so to speak, and believe I was doing my best if I didn't do what I know was the best in the moment? So giving ourselves this grace is such an important part of the process. And it's not something I'm initially saying, by the way, when you join the parenting pivot or when you join League, you're going to learn how to give yourself so much grace. You're going to learn how to have so much compassion for yourself and your kids, which is pivotal to you accepting it. Yet it is, and I'm interested to hear what you say, I feel like it is one of the core beliefs that allows us, when we adopt it, to move through things in a different way than maybe we ever have, by just allowing ourselves to be humans and not beat ourselves up, and realize there's this delay between understanding conceptually, cognitively, new knowledge, new information, and then being actually in a heated moment with our children and have it translate into real life. There's this delay. And I love that you're calling it out. And I'm interested, Amelia, what do you think it was that allowed you? I mean, I think this is an ever evolving belief that we're stepping more and more into, but what was it for you that allowed you to start believing that more, to give yourself that grace, that space, that compassion when you were maybe part of you was believing this isn't the best I could be doing, but part of you realizes, oh, this is the best I could do. It wasn't amazing. I want to do better. Let me just understand what was limiting me. How did you start to bridge that gap for you? What was that like for you? Because I would love people to hear this, because this is one of my favorite things when people start to get this, because things start moving quickly.
Yes.
Once we step into this.
It's a big challenge. And another thing that came up for me too, since we're talking about this, another question I would ask myself is if it almost felt like I was giving myself a free pass, sliding it across the table to myself. And it just felt like I was giving myself permission to be lazy. And I really struggled with that. And I think the way I like to think about it in my brain is I like to think of it as I'm working with someone else, or I'm looking at my younger self, and I'm going back in time, and I'm remembering how I felt when I was treated a certain way. And that really, really helps me, because sometimes our best looks really bad. Sometimes our best is really poor. And I just kind of think about times when I've been really over hungry, when I've been really tired, when I've been really worried about something, when I've been really embarrassed. And I go back to those moments in my head, and I think, because of where I was emotionally, in my body, in my nervous system, that was the best I could do. I wasn't thinking clearly. I was so focused on whatever it was that there was no other better choice, if you will. There was no other option. And sometimes, like I had said, there was a moment, gosh, this was a month or two ago, that I had mentioned, where I knew what to do. I knew what to do, but I still couldn't get myself to do it. And so in that situation, it wasn't like what I had talked about before, where sometimes you're so embarrassed, or you're so angry, or you're so upset that you can't see anything else. And that's okay. And that's the best that you can do in those moments. But since the parenting pivot, things were starting to shift for me. So on one hand, I could see, like, this is what I need to do. But on the other hand, something, and I didn't really know what it was at the time, was really holding me back. And I said, I can't do this. This is scary. This is uncomfortable. I don't like this. And that was really hard for me, because I thought, well, like I said, if you knew what to do and you didn't do it, then you failed. But then what I realized after we talked was, he would ask me questions like, how is it true that that was the best you could do? How is it true that that you were doing your best? And that was a really hard question for me to answer. But when I thought about it, I just was brought back to times where I was in homeschool. And this situation that I'm talking about with you guys, and I'm sharing with you guys, my daughter was working on some homeschool stuff, and she was really having a hard time. And I just had this thought that I really needed to give her a hug. And there was just something so scary in me that was brought up in me. It felt so scary to me, because I thought, I can't do that, because then I'm saying, oh, it's fine that you're throwing a fit, and that you don't want to do your work and stuff. And it sounds silly to say out loud now, but that's really what I thought. And after you were asking me, Andy, how is it true that I was doing my best, I realized that when I was a kid and I was doing school, that was a message that was given to me, was, you don't get breaks. You don't take the easy way out. You do it, and you do it whether you want to or not. Nobody's going to hug you. Nobody's going to come, give you a pat on the back just because you got one answer right. And so that was something that I had to unravel for myself. And that's been the process. It's been unraveling all these things. Like we talk about taking something that seems really big and not understanding at all, and just slowly breaking it down. Like I think you've mentioned monkey bread. There's all these chunks of bread, and we're slowly taking these stories and these pieces out, and we're figuring out what it is. And I'm excited to say that I'm coming to a place now where I don't have to judge myself for these things anymore. Before, these are things that would really leave a sour taste in my mouth for a very, very long time. And I would stew on them, and I would stew on them, and I would beat myself up about it. And honestly, you guys, that would make me even more triggered, even more frustrated, even more short-tempered. And I didn't realize it. But that was
Yeah.
so huge because once I realized that I could treat myself like a human instead of a robot,
Yeah.
that's when
Mm-hmm.
things really started to change because I realized, you know what? That's the only way I'm ever going to get anywhere. It's the only way I'm ever going to get anywhere because I'm not a robot. That's interesting. But
Right.
I thought I was for a long time,
Yeah.
I guess, but I'm not.
This
So I'm
perfectionistic
not.
robot. Yeah.
I can't do all of the things perfectly, and that's okay. And that's been a huge,
Uh,
huge thing for me.
I love that statement. I love what you just said. I can't do all things perfectly, and that's okay. And on one hand, seems like such a simple statement. Of course, I can't do all things perfectly, and that's okay. But to really embody it and to believe it on a nervous system level where you can feel your nervous system agreeing with your brain, oh, yeah, everything's safe. Okay, it's fine. I didn't mess up. That's a beautiful thing to witness. And it doesn't matter where we are on the spectrum. And like you're saying, I love how you're bringing up there's new things that pop up that, you have to unpack a little bit more before you can get fully on board. And some areas that we've worked on that you might say, oh, this isn't a problem anymore. I can always give myself
Mm-hmm.
the truth of the situation always is apparent to me that I'm doing my best in this moment. And in this situation, it's not. So it's a continuous unpacking of all the different things that come together. But I love just how you're calling it out and how you're describing the process it was for you, because if people listening can understand the power of this, that it's not giving yourself a pass. It's not enabling more bad behavior. It's truly the gateway. The doorway of acceptance is the gateway to significant change. Because when you do that from a nervous system perspective, what you're describing allows your nervous system to not go on alert activation mode. When you can believe, I'm doing my best and it's okay and I want to learn and I want to grow, right? Your nervous system then relaxes and now you can get curious and you can grow and you can learn, just as you're explaining. Instead of when we're saying, no, I got to be hard on myself, I can't give myself a break, then the nervous system just continually thinks it needs to protect ourselves from ourselves. And yeah, not a lot of learning happens when we're in that state, even though it
No.
feels like we should have a lot of learning,
Mm-hmm.
believing, we never fail, we only learn and grow. It's just a freeing and truthful statement. So
Mm-hmm.
thank you for calling that out and bringing light to that, because it's a huge subplot maybe to connect with parenting. Maybe it shouldn't be a subplot, but it's almost like something we learn as we embody it. It's not
Mm-hmm.
maybe something we realize we need to learn when we come into this, but so good. Any other thoughts about that we missed that you want to make sure somebody understands? Is there maybe trying to wrap their brain around what we're saying and why this is so important?
All I really can think of to add is, and you kind of touched on this a little bit, Andy, is I really, really believed, as a lot of us do, that stewing on the things that upset me, stewing
Mm-hmm.
on my mistakes, and processing them over and over again in a way to, not to learn, but in a way to tell myself, you must do better next time. You can't let this happen. In a way of doing that over and over and over again, I really thought, I really, really did think that that was the answer, that that was how I would get better, that was how I would improve. And I just never understood why I wasn't getting there, because I really
Yeah.
thought that if I just looked at myself hard enough, if I just looked at the situation hard enough and really scolded myself, if you will, really gave myself a good scolding, that
Mm-hmm.
I would learn, yeah, you're not going to do that again because you really gave yourself a hard time. And it just doesn't work. But there's something about that, and maybe it's because we've been shown it in our lives in society over and over and over again. We just believe without even thinking that that's the answer, that that's what we have to do. We have to scold ourselves, we have to belittle ourselves, we have to tell ourselves we're not good enough. And I don't know if anybody who's listening is a perfectionist, but I've been a perfectionist for a very long time. I
Me
still
too.
struggle with it. And there are reasons in my life story that it's been extra challenging and extra difficult at times, as I'm sure we all have those moments that have caused that for us. But I've realized that well, first of all, being perfect isn't possible, and being perfect isn't the answer. Actually, being the answer
Yeah.
is
Ooh,
being
I
imperfect.
like that.
That is the answer.
Right.
That is the answer, because that is
Mm-hmm.
how you learn and that is how you grow and that's how you show your kids. And I've
Mm-hmm.
been learning, how great would it be if my kids saw me mess up and they saw me fail and I could show them that it didn't destroy me and I didn't have to stew on it and beat myself up about it and I just move on. And it's been something that I've been really
Mm-hmm.
working on with my oldest in her schoolwork because sometimes she'll be like, I don't want to do it, Mom. And I'll say, why not? She's like, because I'm going to mess up. What if I mess up? You're going to be so
Mm-hmm.
mad at me. And I feel so sad that she even says that, but I can understand because there have been times that I've been frustrated. I've lost my cool a little bit, and she's maybe thinking
Mm-hmm.
back to those moments, maybe not, and maybe it's something else, some other situation that comes up in her brain. But how great is it that I can come to her and say, you know what? It's okay if you mess up. Everybody's going to mess
Mm-hmm.
up. We don't have to be perfect. And I can encourage her, and if she messes up, I can say, "Good job. Good job. You learned how not to spell that word or you learned how not to
Right.
do XYZ." And just like I know you've brought up with, just the different inventors and things. They've worked and they've worked
Mm-hmm.
and they've learned all these ways not to do something. And I just think that's so beautiful.
If you're new to Connect Method Parenting, I have a great way for you to get started. I created a free course that covers some of the biggest challenges parents are facing and how Connect Method Parenting solves them. In an hour, we're going to talk about why parenting is so hard, how to get your kids to want to listen to you, how to stop yelling and losing your cool, and become that calm, confident, connected parent for good. It's the fastest way to get started using connection as your go-to tool for influencing and impacting your kids. Go to cmp.works/course to get instant access today. Yeah, we embody it ourselves and we get to pass on to our kids. And this idea of resilience, I've really been thinking about it a lot lately. It's coming up as I'm listening to you as well, that the goal is not to have a life where we don't feel disappointment or we don't have the mess ups.
Mm-hmm.
The goal is to have enough resilience that none of that stops us and that we learn from every single moment that we do fail, or as much as we possibly can. And we use that to have more awareness. We have these strategic byproducts from all of the experiences that we have in our life to make it, to allow us to be more equipped the next time it happens.
Yes.
So I love that you're teaching your daughter that. It's like not a problem. This is not a
Mm-hmm.
problem to spell the word wrong. It's not a problem to get the math problem wrong. It's not a problem if we sometimes yell. It's not a problem that I still get irritated when that guy does whatever. Like
Mm-hmm.
all of that's fine. And I'm just noticing what's coming up. I'm learning from it. I'm having the awareness that I need to have. I'm learning what I need to learn so that I can be more emotionally resilient and feel the emotions that come up and navigate them in a way that's productive. So thank you for bringing that up. And none of that can happen, back to the original point of, if we're activated, if our nervous system's activated, if we're being really hard on ourselves, which I love that you brought that up, this idea that the harder we are on ourselves, the better we are. I feel like a lot of that to some degree comes back to this idea of behavior modification, and correction is the way. This corrective parenting, we do it to ourselves, we do it in society. And so dismantling that and realizing, oh, it's really the connection, not the correction, that allows my nervous system to relax so the learning can take place. Because that's when my prefrontal cortex comes on, and realizing that's the ticket. So, so good. So thank you. You're just
Of
bringing up so many
course.
beautiful things. And I'm loving the examples, because the examples are what really bring it to life. So
Mm-hmm.
people can see
Yes.
themselves in the story. So good. All right. I'm curious. We're talking about the benefits that you saw, the learning that happened, the changes that happened with your parenting as you did the parenting pivot. What did you feel as you came into that 8 week? It was pretty intense. I know I gave you a lot. I tried to whittle it down to the bare bones, and it was still, it's there. I got to teach you the framework in 8 weeks is my goal, to get you the best results possible in 8 weeks. What was the workflow or the accountability or the app or the support? Like, how did that feel to you as you were kind of diving head into something that you knew something about, but, not a lot about, and weren't sure how I was going to actually get the implementation to start happening? How did that
Yeah.
feel? The workload, the flow, accountability, app, all the things, the support.
The workflow, it is. It's a lot, but I think it's really good and it's really important. And I've really noticed that when we had a little bit of a break between pivot and now I'm in mastery, I tried to keep doing the routine and the work myself, but I noticed it was a little bit easier to let it go because we weren't formally meeting.
Yeah.
And so it
Yeah.
was easier for me to kind of let it go, let it slide, if you will. And I did notice a change in the sense that I find it for myself very valuable to take the time every day to do these things. And sometimes
Mm-hmm.
my brain likes to convince me that there are other things that are more important, like your sink full of dirty
Yes.
dishes or your laundry that's been
Right.
sitting on your couch in a mountain for the last week or what have you. It's just
Mm-hmm.
always something that my brain is trying to tell me that I really need to do instead of taking the time to do this. But what I've found is there's nothing more valuable than doing these things because I know you say this all the time, how we do something is how we do everything. So if I'm going to do the laundry, but I'm going to be feeling all grumpy and cranky, that's going to affect me later. If I do the dishes and I'm all mad or cranky or, oh, why are these here? Why didn't anybody help me with these? And then I would be able to do my work over
Yes.
here and I could do my thought download and I could, you know, and I guess I could do my thought download on that, on my attitude about the dishes.
Yeah.
But it's been really valuable for me to do that work. And sometimes it
Mm-hmm.
is hard. Sometimes there's things that you want to do or you're tired or what have you, but it just makes so much of a difference. And it's
Mm-hmm.
been something, like I said, that I've really, really noticed. I love the app. I love how easy it is to put everything
Mm-hmm.
in there, all my thoughts. Everything's right there for you, all the steps. It's so easy. But I gotta say, out of everything, what I have loved and what I have valued the most, more than anything, are office hours.
Mm.
I love them. I love them. I love them. I love them. And I love them not only because I can talk and work through things that I have going on or questions that just pop up for me. Sometimes I go in thinking I'm going to talk about one thing and something completely different comes out, and I love that because that's just a fun little gem that we discovered that I didn't even know was there that we could talk about at work through. But I love hearing other people talk because it makes me feel like I'm not alone and
Mm.
I'm not the only person that struggles with frustration. I'm not the only person that deals with disappointment and
Mm.
embarrassment and wondering things like, why are my kids doing this? And I love being a part of that. And I love hearing people talk. And I love being able to support people. I love being able to, even if I'm not talking in office hours, I love being able to send a message in the chat when we're talking and just
Mm-hmm.
say, I can so relate to this, or you're doing such a good job. And that feels really good. I love office hours. And I can't believe that I almost was too nervous to ever join them. But once I did join them, I never looked back. And I'm so glad because it's been
Oh,
amazing.
I'm so glad you're saying that. That's funny that you were nervous to join them because you've been such a beautiful contributor, whether you, like you said, like whether you're sharing something or supporting people in the chat by just sending a message. And I hope whether you're in currently the pivot or mastery in league in some capacity or just listening to this, realizing the power. Actually, first of all, I hope if you're in league, whether you're in the pivot or mastery, that you're inspired by what you're hearing Amelia say. Because come join. I know it can feel scary to share, but it's so powerful. So I'm glad you're calling that out. And if you aren't in, but you join at some point, make sure you take advantage because they're so fun. It's one of my favorite things too, because I get to know you. We work through things in real life. And sometimes, you know, I've had people say, like, I didn't know what you were going to say. Like that felt like it was impossible, you know? So to be able to
Yeah.
see like, oh, everything is figure outable. Like
Mm-hmm.
everything is figure outable when you're looking at it through the lens of connection and solving things through the knowledge that we need togetherness as humans. We can solve it all, you know, which doesn't surprise me anymore, but I've had lots of people say, I can't believe what just happened.
I felt that way. I have definitely felt
Have
that
you?
way. Yeah. Like, oh my goodness, I didn't. That's what I love about it is I come in thinking, oh man, I have no idea. How can we figure this out? This feels impossible. And then you'll say something
Mm,
or somebody else will bring something up and I'll say to myself, that's such a good idea or I never thought of it that way. And it's
mm-hmm,
just something that maybe my brain couldn't get to on its own. And having
mm-hmm,
that little extra help, that little extra support, that little extra guidance really puts it over the top. And I love that.
yeah. To me, it was so important to have that. And we try to do them as often as I can have them almost every day of the week. We try to have an office hours call. But that's the magic of the implementation process because you can watch something, you can, whether I'm teaching or you're watching a recording of me teaching, you can learn the knowledge conceptually on a systemic level. But it's those situations that you come and your brain says it's not going to work here, or I don't know what happened wrong. That's where need to be focusing on often. And I love how you're saying it doesn't matter if you're the one asking the question or you're hearing somebody else, it's still doing the work of saying, oh, it does work on this specific situation level. And that's where the neural pathways start to shift. So that's the power of the way we've structured the program is you have the knowledge, but we also have heavy implementation where we're working on certain things. So glad you're calling that out, and just wanting to really explain why that is so impactful is because it does make it from knowing to doing. Okay, This is how it actually works in real life, because it's beautiful to hear inspiring ideas. You're like, that sounds amazing, but how do I actually do it? So thank you for bringing that up.
Yeah.
What do you think the biggest change, we've talked about a couple, but what do you think the biggest change has been since implementing Connect Method parenting for you or your kids or both?
Yes. Well, for me, it's realizing that I can give myself permission to feel anything. And I really never felt that was possible before. I didn't even know how. And now that I'm learning this, I'm so excited because I'm getting to discover, what even am I feeling right now? I know we've talked about this a little bit, just the two of us or in office hours, but the idea that I realize my vocabulary with emotions is so limited. I know the typical ones that we all probably know: happy, sad, angry, frustrated. But then I can really get into the nitty gritty and say, what's the difference between being frustrated and being upset, or angry and frustrated, or irritated and upset? And I realize I know so little because it's not something that we ever really talk about as a society or really anywhere. And that's been so huge for me. I've loved being able to stop and think about, what am I feeling right now? What does this look like? What is it? And trying to figure out what it is. And that's been so huge. I've never stopped to do that. And I've never given myself the permission to feel the quote unquote negative emotions. I've always thought they were dirty words. I've always thought they were bad. I've always thought it meant that there was something wrong with you, that you were a bad mom, that you were a bad parent, that you were just a bad person, even. Just, like, get a hold of yourself, control yourself. Why are you angry right now? This isn't something to be angry about. I mean, that's the things that my brain would tell me all the time. What is wrong with you? What are you doing? I mean, just all the time. And now I can see myself in those moments, and I can say, you know what? Makes total sense that I'm angry right now. Makes total sense. And I'll even tell myself, why does it make total sense? I'll think, oh, it's okay that you're angry right now. Your daughter just spilled coffee all over the table and you just made it. And of course you wanted to drink it so that you could be a happy, positive person. No.
Right. You were so excited for that cup.
Yes.
And now it's gone.
Yes. And just,
makes sense.
It makes sense. And then at the same time, just giving myself that little inner hug, that little inner pat on the back, that little comfort, and saying, it's okay. It's all right. I know we want to be angry and shout right now. Maybe we need to, and that's okay. Maybe we just need to go to our room and shout in a pillow. That's what I've been starting to teach my kids, and when I apologize to them, and I love this. This is something I've loved for myself. I love that when I do something like that, and I do say they spilled my coffee, this has happened, they've spilled my coffee. I get up and I'm like, what did you do? I love that I can come back after I've taken a minute to calm down, to clean up the mess. I have time to think about it. I have time to come back to them. And I love now that I'm realizing I don't have to say the words, I'm sorry I was mad. I love that I don't have to say that, because I don't have to apologize for the emotion. Maybe I have to apologize for the behavior. Maybe that's what we need to do. Because it's like you say all the time. It's that all emotions are allowed. All emotions are okay, but we can't be okay with all behavior. So I can come back to them and I can say, you know what, guys, and I've done this before. I can say, guys, I got mad. I got mad that my coffee spilled, and that's okay. And I'll say that. I'll say, it's okay that I got mad. Then I'll follow it up by saying something like, but what's not okay is how I handled it. I'm sorry that I yelled at you guys. That wasn't the right thing to do. If mommy really wanted to yell and shout about the coffee, I could have just gone in my room and yelled in my pillow. Something like that. I've loved that for myself. I've loved that for my kids. And I've noticed that my children are a lot more, especially my oldest, since she's a little bit older, it's maybe a little bit easier to see with her. But she's so much more, and I've had people outside of my home tell me this, that they've noticed this change. She's so much more relaxed. She seems so much more just confident, and that nervous energy that she maybe had before has gone down quite a bit. I can
Mm.
say that a year ago, or maybe even a year and a half ago now, I can't remember, I was pretty concerned about the energy levels that she had. It seemed like she had high anxiety. And I'm not saying there is anything wrong with trying these things because I am all for these things. We tried giving some like natural supplement things to kind of help and reduce that anxiety because she just seemed so anxious all the time.
Mm.
We couldn't go down to the basement without her getting really upset and saying, "Mommy, Daddy, where are you?" And sometimes
Mhm.
even I'd say, "Hey, I gotta go to the basement for a second. I'll be right back." And she would be so upset. She'd constantly wondering where we are, what's going on, what are we doing? And I've just noticed such a change in her. She doesn't do that anymore. It's
Ah,
been
love that.
so great because I think we're really getting on a level where we're feeling connected and I can leave the room and that's not such a disruption for her in her nervous
Hmm.
system because I can take the time to come in and say to her, I got to do this. I'll be right back and I don't even have to say that anymore. She just knows because something has changed in our relationship and it's that level of connection now. She knows I'm not going
Yeah,
to leave. She knows I'm not going to
right.
disappear. And I'm going to tell her what's going on and I'm going to be there for her. So I've noticed that level come down so much. That level of anxiety has really dropped. And I never thought it was possible. They do want to listen to me. Even my 3-year-old.
They do.
I have her do quiet time, and that's not something that is a very popular thing at my house. But I think to myself, she's only 3 and she doesn't really understand that. But I'll bring her in her room,
Yeah.
and I love the techniques that we've been learning in this program, and I'll bring her in and I'll do something that is called bridging. And I'll say, you
Hmm.
have to, I'll tell her what needs to happen first. I'll say, you need to stay in your room because it's quiet time right now. But then I can bridge and I can say, but when your light turns off, and it's time to come out, we can play with your Paw Patrol toys together. And I just love that because she's so
Yes.
excited and then she stays in there. And I gotta say, you guys,
Hmm.
sometimes she comes out, but
Yeah.
I honestly can say that happens way less than it used to. Way less than it
Yeah.
used to. She will stay in and then she will come out and we'll play together and it's great. It's fun and I love it and I've been so happy to see. I never thought it was possible that they would actually want to do the things I say. And I don't find
Mm.
myself repeating things as much as I used to or asking things as much as I used to. And sometimes when I feel myself getting upset and I'll say, hey, we need to go over here, we need to do this thing, whatever it might be, if I feel myself starting to get frustrated, I can sense the resistance in them. And it's so great because I can take a step back and I can acknowledge it for what it is. I can say, it's okay that they're doing this. It's okay that I'm feeling this way. What can I
Hmm.
do? And it's not perfect, of course. It's not perfect. We have our moments, we have our hiccups. But when I
Yeah.
can take a step back and I can reassure myself, I can calm myself, I can get into a place where I'm just present in this moment with whatever it is that's going on. And I
Hmm.
can redirect and go back into the situation and say, it's okay, come on, we're going to go do this. And then afterwards we're going to read that book that you wanted to read. And
Mm.
there's so much I could say on bridging. There's so much I could say on a lot of these things because sometimes I've felt like it's a reward for bad behavior. I know we've
Hmm.
talked about that. Things like bridging, things like
Hmm.
playing, they feel like they're taking away from lessons that need to be learned. But the more I do this and the more I work at this, the more I realize that stuff isn't true. It's just what my
Yeah.
brain likes to think.
Hmm.
But I'm coming to a place where I'm just being able to unravel all those things. And they still come up, but we're working on it. We're unraveling. We're thinking, we're going through the steps, and it's working. It's working.
Oh, it's working beautifully. Oh my gosh. This invitation you're describing in what you were just sharing is so beautiful. The invitation for your children to be exactly who they are and yourself
Mm-hmm.
to be exactly who you are in the moment is one that I'm not surprised by all the things you're describing. Just that connection is deeper. The sense of togetherness is stronger when you go to the basement. Your oldest is able to hold on to you
Mm-hmm.
even when you're physically not present because that connection, that the roots of attachment are getting deeper and deeper and deeper. And yeah, all of these things that we think we need to fix by, you know, ultimatums or punishments or whatever they are, they're really, the solution is deep roots of attachment, which is exactly what you're sharing, which is so beautiful. And that description of what you just said about being present in the moment, that's so important. I hope everyone can hear that because it's not I'm always perfect or the kids are always perfect. It's just like I'm here for whatever's happening and I'm not going to resist it to the best of my ability. I'm going to try to open up and accept it. And that just, yeah, the outcome of that is kids who want to listen and or more than they, more often than not. And I would say, if the kids are still coming out, it's probably not probably there's some other reason why they might not be feeling settled or something else happened or they're really tired or they're really like there's some reason. And so even just settling into that acceptance of it's okay, there's a reason and we'll figure it out. It's so beautiful. Thank you for sharing all of that and all the examples of how that's playing out and showing up in your life.
Yeah.
Oh, it's so good. I know we could talk about bridge for a whole episode. Just you and me,
we could. We absolutely could.
We might have to do that later. Because be I've thought about bringing like multiple people who've gone through recently and, having them each share their examples of it because it is such a powerful, we could do that with many, many tools, but such a powerful tool. That's one of them. So good. How do you think, if you had to put into words, how those changes feel? If there was an emotion, all the things you've been describing today, how do you feel about them?
Honestly, the word I can think of is the first thing that comes into my mind is elated, joyful.
I love that.
I can remember one of the first times when I was in Pivot where I remember specifically feeling this way. I had only been doing it for a little while and my kids were fighting and not sharing their toys as little kids do.
Of course. Yes.
And I had to separate them. And what I've loved learning about Connect Method Parenting, this is just a side note, is when I was reading the book, before I started the Pivot, before I started anything, I remember being really confused about the lack of consequences. That really was a puzzler for me because I thought, I don't understand. How do you teach them? How do you enforce things? How do you do things? And what I've learned and what I've realized is it's not to say that there isn't consequence because that's the life we live in. There are things that are going to happen, but it's all about how we approach them. It's all about how we go about them. And it's all about whether or not they're punitive or not. What's our mission behind them? Is it to just say, well, it's because I'm mad and because I said so. And, what is it? Or is it a safety thing? What is it? And so I've really enjoyed and valued that aspect. So my kids were fighting. And I guess you could say consequence of them fighting and not sharing the toys in this situation for me was I had to separate them. That was, consequence of what happened.
Yeah.
But I brought my oldest because she was kind of the instigator here. At least it seemed. I brought her back to her room and she was screaming at me and she was upset and trying to escape, run past me. And I was just standing there and I just remember kind of having this out of body experience. Like I was watching myself. Everything slowed down. Usually things go really fast for me. It's like, I don't even know what's happening because things are going so fast. I'm like on a train that is going 1,000,000 miles an hour and I don't even know what's happening until it's over. So I don't know if anybody else feels that way, but that's me a lot. And that was me a lot. So I kind of had this out of body experience where I'm standing there with her and it's like I'm watching myself and I'm seeing myself and I'm thinking in the moment, what am I going to do now? And it wasn't thinking like a panic, like, oh no, I don't know what to do. I really felt in control. And that is when I felt so elated and excited. It was almost like a runner's high. I was like, what just happened?
Yes.
What did I just do?
Yeah.
That was amazing.
That's right.
So I'm watching and the screaming wasn't amazing, but what was happening was amazing because I was watching the things happen that we always talk about. And everything that we talk about and everything that we've been learning and teaching and talking about, it was all happening before my eyes. So she was mad. She was screaming at me. And I just kind of sat there with her. I didn't leave. I was able to stay, thankfully, in the room with her in that moment in particular. Sometimes that doesn't always work out, but this time it did. And I was just sitting there with her and she was screaming at me and she was trying to hit me. And I said no. And I didn't go into a long story. I just said, no, you can't hit me. And I watched her, as you talk about it, as we've talked about, as you teach, I've watched her go from being really mad about it to just being really sad. And
yes,
she went from slamming her feet on the ground and throwing her arms everywhere and rolling on the floor to hugging me and just being kind of sad about it and being sad that, oh, I didn't want to share my little Paw Patrol toys. I didn't want to share them. And it was such a beautiful moment and it was so great. And it almost felt too good to be true. It almost,
Mm-hmm.
because like I said, it was an
Mm-hmm.
out of body experience. It felt like I was watching a movie and it was just the coolest thing. And I felt so elated. I felt that excitement. I felt like that energy like you get from a runner's high. And I was like, I want to feel this way every time. I want to feel this way every time. I don't want this ever to go away. I want to do this way every
Yes.
time. And unfortunately, as we've talked about and as we all know, it doesn't always work out that way. But I'm
Right.
learning as a part of the process that is okay. So that
Yes.
is for me just a snapshot of just a moment when I really felt that change and that excitement.
Yeah. I love it. I'm so glad you painted that picture. The emotion of elation is just perfect. I remember
Hmm.
having those moments too. And that's when the neural pathway is starting to come into the real moment. And it's so exciting. I call it the watcher, right? To be that compassionate watcher. So I'm so glad everyone got a peek into your life and got to see that. That's what happens when we practice this.
Yeah, me
And
too. I'm glad.
it happens more and more often. Yeah, it happens more and more frequently. We're able to step more and more into it. Yeah, all of that just
Hmm.
naturally flows out. Oh, this has been such a good conversation. I wonder if you have any advice for someone who's struggling with their
Hmm.
parenting and isn't sure, kind of like you were describing, isn't sure if connect method parenting could work because maybe their kids are really hard or maybe they're really, they've tried all the things. What would you say to them now that you've gone through it? I'd love to hear what you might say.
Yeah, well, the first thing I would say is, what do you have to lose? What do you have to lose?
It's a good
Because
question.
that's kind of my thought was, I thought I have nothing to lose in this. I have nothing to lose in this. It's just me trying something. I'm going to go for it. So that's the first thing I would
Mm-hmm.
say. You don't have anything to lose from trying this. And if you're feeling skeptical, that's okay. Let yourself be skeptical.
Yeah,
Let
totally
yourself
okay.
ask the questions. Let yourself wonder the
Yeah.
things. And if you join, Pivot, or you start reading the book or whatever it is, you're listening to these podcasts, don't be afraid to ask yourself those questions that you're afraid to ask. That
Yes.
I was almost afraid to ask myself because I was worried that if I asked myself them, then the great thing that I was learning about would somehow be disproven. I would realize
Mm,
that it wasn't going to work out the way I thought it was, and or it
yeah.
wasn't working out the way I thought it was, and it would be
Mm-hmm.
over, and it was shot down. But don't be afraid to ask yourself those questions, because when you ask yourself those questions, that's when something really amazing happens. That's when something really cool
Oh,
happens, and you learn something about maybe yourself, your kids, both, maybe just life.
yeah.
I said to you, Andy, in office hours, I like to think of this as connect method living, because that's really what it
Love
is.
that.
We're
Yeah,
living,
it
you're
is.
living these things in all areas of your life, and it doesn't have to just be in the parenting aspect. So don't be afraid to ask yourself those questions. You don't have anything to lose. And if you guys who are listening, if you have a child that has high anxiety, if you have a child that has a lot of energy, I feel you and I hear you, and you will be amazed.
Mm-hmm.
You really will. I can't even put into words to describe how amazing the transformation has been in the span of a couple of months. I no
Yeah.
longer have a
Hasn't been very
child
long.
who, I no longer have a child who is screaming in terror when I go to the basement or go to another room or go outside to water my flowers, because she knows that everything is good. Our connection is there. And another thing I would say too is a piece of advice: accept
Mm-hmm.
yourself and your kids exactly where they are. So if you feel like things
Yes.
are absolutely crazy and terrible right now, just try your best as you can to just accept it and not think that there's something wrong with you or there's something wrong with your
Yeah.
kids. Don't put that on
Mm,
yourself.
so good.
Don't put that on yourself. I did
Yes.
that for so long. I thought I must have done something. I must have done something along the line to give her this idea that I'm not coming back or something. That's all
Right.
I could think of, was it was my fault, or I just thought if it wasn't that, it was the thought that there was something wrong with her. And why is she doing this? And this
Right.
is a problem.
Mm-hmm.
Do your best just to accept yourself exactly where you are. If what you are in the moment is, maybe you're feeling I'm an angry person, I'm a frustrated person, I'm an impatient person, accept yourself where you are and realize you're not those things. It's just emotions that are really strong in you right now. And it doesn't
Mm,
mean that that's what you are. It's just something that you feel, and it's really got a grip on you right now. And that's okay. That's okay, because I have felt that way. I have felt that I have been a one emotion train, and that was the definition of who I was. And
yeah.
I didn't know how to get out of that. And I'll go on to say, too, that I have felt nothing. I have felt completely emotionless and robotic just to survive. And if that is how you are and how you're feeling, it's okay. Just try your best. Like I said, try your best to just accept where you are and accept where your kids are. And doing that will make all the difference in the world. Just trying to tell yourself that I love me and I love my kids no matter what.
Oh my goodness. That was so good. Can you come every week on the podcast?
I'd love to. It's so fun. I could talk about this forever. It's meant everything to me. It's made such a difference in my life. And I don't say that lightly. I don't say that because I'm here. I came here because I wanted to be here. And I came here because I fully support and endorse this, you guys. This is why I'm here, because I believe in this and because I see what it does. So please, if you are even thinking about this a little bit, or maybe this is the first time you're hearing about it, you will not be disappointed. You will really find yourself on a wild journey if you let yourself go on it, but it's a journey that will bring so much fruit into your life. It really will.
I love how you called it a wild journey. It is kind of a bit of a wild journey.
It is, but it's great. It's a great one.
Yeah, because we dive into all the things, because it's like, well, if I'm stressed out about this and it's impacting my parents, there's just, we're diving into all of the aspects. I love how you call it connect method living.
Yes, you may be overwhelmed. You may be overwhelmed a little bit, and that is okay. There may be a million thoughts flying in your brain, and yeah, we've all been there.
Yeah, okay. We've all been there. Yeah, we just believe. And I love the advice you gave to just accept where they or their kids are without the judgment or the thinking, something's wrong with me or the kid. That is powerful advice. And I know that you felt that personally, with your kids. So I'm so glad you're sharing that. I could just talk about that nonstop.
I know.
That's like one of the soapboxes I'm on all the time.
And just another question to ask yourself too, and I know you've asked me this, Andy, is ask yourself, if you're listening to this and you do have a child that's maybe really difficult, or you have a situation that's really difficult, ask yourself this question: what if it wasn't a problem? That question, I've loved
such
that.
A good question.
I've loved that. And I never thought to ask myself that. I mean, because I'd think to myself, what do you mean? Of course it's a problem.
It is a problem.
But what if it wasn't? What if it wasn't?
Yeah,
just go there. What if it wasn't? Just ask yourself that. Just see what comes up. Just see what comes up. It's so interesting.
It's so interesting. I think we're going to leave everybody with that. I love that question. What if it wasn't a problem? And what if it made total sense? Like that's the companion, right? Another companion. Like, what if this made total sense? How is this completely, here in a way that's serving me? I mean, so many times our nervous system, we judge the emotions and the reactions we have because we think there's a problem. But what if that system is working in a way that's, if we didn't see it as a problem, it would actually serve us. Mm-hmm. So good. Okay. So what if it wasn't a problem? I love that. Everybody be thinking about that. And thank you so much, Amelia, for sharing all of this. I love giving people a sneak peek of what it looks like in different people's homes and through their lens and how it's impacted them. Yeah. So thank you so much for sharing today. Any final thoughts? I feel like you just gave us so many gems and wisdom just before this. But is there any final thoughts that you want to share?
All I will say is it's been a joy and a pleasure. And check it out. Check out Connect Method Parenting, you guys.
Yeah, love it. Thank you so much. Thanks for being here and sharing so authentically and taking time. I know this is busy. You have 3 little kids. So thanks for taking a chunk out of your day to share.
Happy to do it.
If you enjoyed listening to this podcast, come check out League, my Connect Method parenting coaching program, where we take this material and we apply it using my proven formula. Head over to cmp.works/join.